Welcome back. I'm Jenna, and this is the worst mistake I ever made. A few years ago, I was 34 and living what looked from the outside like a calm, happy life. I was married to Lucas, and we had our daughter, Lily. Lucas was the kind of husband people praised without even trying. He worked long hours in IT, came home tired, and still had enough patience to help Lily with homework, build blanket forts, or read the same bedtime story 3 nights in a row because she asked for it. He was steady, kind, reliable, the kind of man you do not appreciate enough until you lose him. My best friend Ashley had known us since college, and even she used to tell me how lucky I was. She was not wrong. Lucas was not flashy, but he was present in every way that mattered. He remembered Lily's favorite snacks. He folded laundry without being asked. He made dinner when I was running late. He was the person who kept our home feeling warm and safe, even when life got stressful. If you had asked me then, I would have said I loved him. I did love him. I just did not treat that love like it mattered. That is the part that still makes my stomach turn. I had stability, comfort, and a husband who never made me wonder where I stood. But instead of being grateful, I started feeling restless. I told myself I was bored. I told myself I needed more. I told myself that the quiet life I had was somehow too small for me. Looking back, I can hear how selfish that sounds. At the time, I only heard my own excuses. Ashley was the one I vented to first. I would complain that every day felt the same, that I was stuck in routines, that marriage had become predictable. She always tried to talk sense into me. She told me that predictability was not the enemy. It was security. It was love, but I did not want to hear that. I wanted to feel something new, something exciting, something that made me feel young again, and that is exactly when Dylan entered my life. Dylan worked at a small cafe near my office. I started going there during lunch breaks because the coffee was decent and it was close enough to be convenient. At first, he was just the guy behind the counter. Friendly, confident, a little too smooth. He had a loud laugh, a quick smile, and this way of making every conversation feel like a performance. People seemed drawn to him. He always had a few customers lingering just to talk. Compared to Lucas, Dylan felt like the opposite of everything I knew. Lucas was calm and grounded. Dylan was bold and attention-seeking. Lucas made me feel cared for. Dylan made me feel noticed. And that difference mattered more to me than it should have. It started with small talk, then inside jokes, then texts, then lunches outside the cafe. I told myself it was harmless, that I was just enjoying a little attention, a little escape from my routine. But I knew even then that I was crossing lines I should not have touched. I just kept going anyway, and honestly, I thought everything was fine. I really did. Looking back now, I should have seen it coming. The first warning sign was how quickly I started looking forward to Dylan's messages more than I looked forward to going home. I would see Lucas helping Lily with her reading or making dinner, and instead of feeling grateful, I would feel restless again. That detail matters. Remember it. Dylan was charming in a way that felt easy at first. He made me laugh. He noticed when I changed my hair. He remembered little things I said in passing. That kind of attention can feel intoxicating when you have started taking the steady kind for granted. I told myself I was just flattered. I told myself I was still in control. But the truth is, I was already leaning toward him before I admitted it. The texts became more personal, then more flirty. He would send me jokes during the day, and I would smile at my phone like a teenager. I hated how alive it made me feel. I hated even more that I kept choosing it. Lucas was at home being dependable, and I was getting a thrill from secrecy. I did not tell Ashley how often I saw Dylan. I only mentioned him once or twice, like he was just some funny guy from the cafe. She said he sounded like trouble. I laughed it off. But at the time, I had no idea how right she was. One day, Dylan asked me to lunch outside the cafe, and I said yes. I knew it was a line. I crossed it anyway. After that, everything moved faster than I expected. Lunch became a habit. The habit became a secret. The secret became a second life. I told myself I deserved something exciting. I told myself Lucas would never know. I told myself I was just unhappy and this was me finding myself. That is the kind of lie people tell when they want permission to hurt the people who love them. The guilt was there, but I kept pushing it down. It would show up when Lucas was helping Lily with homework, or when he was folding tiny socks, or when he would kiss my forehead on the way to bed and ask if I was okay. I would feel sick with shame for a minute, and then Dylan would text me again, and I would choose the feeling that made me forget. Grief is strange. It does not always look the way you expect. Sometimes it looks like denial. Sometimes it looks like selfishness dressed up as freedom. Eventually, the affair became physical. I am not going to pretend it happened by accident. It did not. I made choices. Dylan did not force me. I was the one who kept showing up. I was the one who kept lying. I was the one who kept telling myself I could live in two worlds at once without destroying either one. Looking back now, I should have seen it coming. The night everything started to fall apart, I told Lucas I had to work late. That was not unusual, so he did not question it. He trusted me completely. I went to Dylan's place instead. It was a cramped studio that smelled like stale coffee and cheap cologne. I remember the dim light, the clutter, the feeling that I was standing inside a decision I could not take back. I stayed longer than I should have. When I finally came home, Lucas was waiting on the couch. He was not angry, not yet. He was quiet. That was worse. My work bag was in his hands. My stomach dropped before he even spoke. I had left it behind in my rush. He asked me if I had forgotten something. Then he emptied the bag onto the floor and found the cafe receipt. The timestamp was enough. I could feel my pulse in my throat. I tried to think of an excuse, but there was nothing left that sounded believable. He asked me who he was. I froze. He did not yell. He did not throw anything. He just looked at me with this terrible calm, like he was trying to hold himself together for Lily's sake. Then he said, "I trust you." That was the moment I knew I had broken something I could never fully repair. He walked upstairs without another word. I stood in the living room and felt the air leave my body. Part of me was terrified, part of me felt numb, and part of me, the ugliest part, felt relieved that the secret was finally out. I do not need to tell you how that felt. The next few days were miserable. Lucas moved around the house like a ghost. He still helped Lily. He still did the school runs. He still cooked when he needed to, but he barely spoke to me. The silence was unbearable. I wanted him to scream because at least then I would know he still had something left to give. Instead, he got quieter and more distant, and that made everything feel final. A few nights later, after Lily was asleep, he told me he thought we should separate. He said it calmly, like he had already spent days rehearsing the words. I did not fight him. I did not beg. I just sat there and nodded, because some selfish part of me had already convinced itself that this was the beginning of my new life. That was when everything changed. We filed for divorce soon after. Lucas did not fight me on much except Lily. He wanted shared custody. I pushed for full custody, telling myself I was the primary caregiver and that Lily would be better off with me. I can barely write that now without feeling sick. Lucas did not make a scene. He just said he would respect what was best for Lily. At the time, I read that as him giving up. Now I know he was trying to keep things civil for our daughter. After the papers were signed, Lucas moved out. Dylan moved in a few weeks later, and for a while I convinced myself I had chosen the right life. We laughed more. We stayed up late. We watched movies and ordered takeout and acted like we were some carefree couple starting over. Dylan made me feel young and reckless. Lily was too young to understand everything, and he made an effort with her at first. He brought little gifts. He joked around at dinner. I told myself we were building something new, but the cracks showed fast. Dylan could not keep a job. There was always an excuse. The manager was unfair. The hours were bad. The place was toxic. He bounced from one short gig to another and never stayed long enough to build anything stable. I had a good job, so I kept telling myself we could manage. I covered rent. I covered groceries. I covered daycare. I covered everything. Then the bills started piling up. Dylan's charm faded into complaints. He spent more time on the couch than anywhere else. Lily started asking why he did not work, why he was always tired, why he never helped with homework. I did not know how to answer her without sounding pathetic, so I changed the subject. That was another warning sign I ignored. One night he asked me for money to cover his car payment. He said he would pay me back after his next paycheck. That paycheck never came. Instead, he bought a gaming console. When I confronted him, he laughed and told me I was stressing over nothing. I remember standing there in the kitchen, staring at him, realizing that the man I had left my husband for was not building a life with me. He was draining it. Still, I stayed. I stayed because I was ashamed to admit I had made a mistake. I stayed because I did not know how to go back. I stayed because I thought leaving him would mean admitting Lucas had been right all along. That is a hard thing to face when your pride is doing more damage than your conscience. Then one evening, I came home from work and found Dylan asleep on the couch, surrounded by empty takeout containers. Lily was on the floor doing homework by herself. She looked up at me and asked where Dylan was. She said it so quietly that it almost hurt more. I looked at the mess, at my daughter sitting alone, and something inside me cracked. I realized I had traded a stable home for chaos. And for what? A man who could not even stay awake long enough to help my child with math. I wanted to call Lucas right then. I wanted to beg him to take us back, but I could not. I was too ashamed. So I kept trying to force a broken life into something livable. I told myself Dylan just needed time. I told myself things would improve. I told myself I had chosen this, so I had to make it work. But the truth was I was drowning. Lily started asking for her dad more and more. Every time she did, it felt like a knife turning in my chest. Lucas always answered her calls. Always. His voice was calm and warm, and I could hear how much he missed her even when he did not say it directly. Meanwhile, Dylan kept acting like being a partner and a stepfather was some inconvenience he had not agreed to. He would sit on the couch, scroll his phone, and leave me to handle everything else. Then came the night I finally snapped. I got home exhausted and found the sink full of dishes, Lily's homework untouched, and Dylan on the couch surrounded by wrappers. I asked him, as calmly as I could, to help me for once. He shrugged and said I was the one who wanted all this. Then he said he did not sign up to be a babysitter. That word hit me hard. Lily was not a babysitting job. She was my daughter. Our life was not supposed to feel like a burden to him. I locked myself in the bathroom and cried because I did not want Lily to see me falling apart. The next day she asked why Dylan never helped her with schoolwork. I changed the subject again, but I could feel my guilt turning into something heavier. That night after Lily went to bed, I called Lucas. He answered on the third ring. I told him I could not do this anymore. I told him I had made a mistake. I told him I thought I wanted freedom, but all I had done was destroy the one good thing in my life. I said Lily needed him. There was a long silence, and then he asked me what I wanted him to do. I was not ready for that. I think I expected him to say he would come back. I think I expected him to rescue me from the consequences of my own choices. Instead, he told me he was always there for Lily, but he could not fix this for me. He said I had made my choices. Then he told me I needed to figure out how to be the mother Lily deserved. I sat there with the phone in my hand after he hung up, feeling smaller than I had ever felt in my life. A week later, I drove 2 hours to his new place with Lily in the car. I did not call ahead because I knew he would not agree to see me if I did. When he opened the door, he looked surprised, but not shocked. Lily ran to him and hugged him, and I wanted to do the same, but I could not bring myself to move. We sat in his living room, and I poured everything out. I told him about Dylan, the bills, the stress, the shame. I told him I knew I did not deserve forgiveness, but I needed help for Lily's sake. He listened quietly. When I finished, he told me he was sorry I was struggling, but he could not be the solution to my problems. He said Lily was his priority, and that chapter between us was over. I begged him to reconsider. He did not. I drove home feeling like I had hit rock bottom. Dylan was asleep on the couch when I got back, completely unaware that my last hope had just been crushed. I looked at him and realized I could not stand the sight of him anymore. He was not my escape. He was my punishment. Then Ashley got involved. She had been the one person I kept calling when things got bad. She had warned me early on, and I had ignored her. When I finally admitted how bad everything had become, she told me I needed real help. Therapy, rehab, something beyond excuses. I brushed her off at first, but she was right to be worried. I was not okay. When she finally told me she had to let Lucas know what was happening, I panicked. I begged her not to. I accused her of betraying me, but she said she loved Lily too much to stay silent. I was furious at her then. Now I understand why she did it. 2 days later, Lucas showed up at the house. He asked where Lily was. He went straight to her room and came back out with her carrying a small bag. He told me she was coming with him. I begged him not to take her. I promised I would fix everything. He looked at me with a kind of disappointment that hurt more than anger ever could. He said I had had my chances. Then he left with my daughter. I collapsed on the floor after they were gone. I called, I texted, I emailed, I promised I would get help, I promised I would do anything. He did not answer. The house felt empty in a way I cannot fully describe. It was not just quiet, it was gone. It was the sound of a life ending while I was still standing in it. I sat with that for a long time. What happened after that was not some dramatic instant fix. It was uglier and slower than that. Dylan kept spiraling, and I finally saw him for what he was. Not a bold, exciting man, just a selfish one who had helped wreck my life and then blamed me for the wreckage. Ashley stopped being my safety net and became a mirror I did not want to look into. Lucas became the parent Lily needed, and I became someone who had to earn even the right to ask about her. I started therapy because I had nowhere else to go. I wish I could say I did it for the right reasons from the start, but the truth is I did it because I was terrified of losing Lily forever. My therapist did not let me hide behind excuses. She kept bringing me back to the same place, my choices, not to shame me, but to make me face them honestly. That was harder than I expected. I think what hurt most was not what they did, it was what it meant. Lucas moving on meant he had stopped waiting for me to become the woman I should have been. Ashley choosing him meant she believed Lily needed stability more than she needed my pride protected. And Lily leaving with her father meant my daughter had reached the age where she could feel the difference between a safe home and a broken one. That is the part I cannot escape. I did not just lose a husband. I lost the version of myself that deserved him. I lost my best friend because I treated her warnings like obstacles instead of love. I lost my daughter's trust because I confused my own desires with her best interests. And I lost the illusion that freedom means anything if it is built on selfishness. Grief is strange. It does not always look the way you expect. Sometimes it looks like shame. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like sitting in a room full of reminders and realizing you made every one of them. If I could go back, I would do one thing differently before everything else. I would tell the truth earlier, not after the affair, not after the divorce, not after the bills, the pills, the panic, and the custody fight. Earlier, because once you start building a life on lies, every choice after that becomes harder to undo. I also learned that wanting excitement is not the same as needing to destroy what is steady. I thought I was choosing passion. What I was really choosing was instability dressed up as freedom. Lucas was not boring, he was safe, and I had no idea how valuable that was until I was standing in the wreckage of losing it. I want to give you an update because a lot has changed. I am still in therapy. I am still trying to rebuild myself from the ground up. Dylan is gone from my life now, and that alone has made the house feel less poisonous. Ashley and I are not what we were, and I do not know if we ever will be again. I do know she was right to put Lily first, even if I hated her for it at the time. Lucas has kept things focused on Lily, and that is probably the only reason I still have any contact at all. He sends short updates. He does not invite conversation. He does not give me false hope. He is civil, but distant. I cannot blame him for that. If anything, I am grateful he is still willing to keep Lily's life stable. As for me, I am trying to accept that healing is not the same as being forgiven. I want my daughter back in my daily life. I want to be trusted again. But I know those things cannot be demanded. They can only be earned slowly if they can be earned at all. That is the hardest part, not the loneliness, not the embarrassment. It is living with the fact that I created this distance myself, and no amount of regret can erase that. So I have to ask you, if someone destroys a stable family chasing excitement, do they deserve a second chance to rebuild it, or do they have to live with the consequences forever? Because I still think about it, and I genuinely do not know if I made the right call by trying to fight for my daughter after everything I did. Leave your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more stories like this, you already know what to do.